Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Track 2. If you were in the first Track 2 session, we would just like to thank you for hanging in there with us throughout those technical difficulties. We do appreciate you. Again, my name is Megan Yarber from Public Strategies, and just a quick reminder to use the chat box if you have any questions or comments or to address any technical issues you may be having with the presenters. If you don't see the chat box located in the panels on your screen, please select the chat icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. And at this time, I would like to welcome our moderator for today, Jerry Regier, Project Director with Public Strategies.
Thank you, Megan, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me just go through a couple of things before we introduce our presenters. First of all, in the chat box, they will be providing links to some of the handouts. And so you can watch your chat box for that if you haven't downloaded the handouts ahead of time. And then I also want to suggest that you listen carefully with the goal of providing feedback. At the end of every day, you will get the opportunity to give specific feedback for the day. And since there will be 3 sessions, you might want to make yourself some notes as to how you want to provide that feedback. And yesterday we got some great feedback, but it was only from about 30 people. And we know that there's more than 100 on this session. So we'd love to hear from each of you, because that's the way that we can not only ensure that we're making continuous improvement, but that we can learn from what you tell us. So today, conducting observations and giving specific feedback, our presenters are first Tracy Pike. Tracy is the Executive Director of Ascend, and Melissa Walther, who is the National Project Director for Ascend. So are we starting with Tracy or Melissa?
We're starting with me.
Okay.
So I'm Melissa, since there's 2 of us, in case you weren't aware or don't know us already. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time and your willingness to join in for these sessions and really stay engaged in the information. Today we're talking about conducting observations and giving specific feedback. Obviously, that is a really key component of any successful SRAE program, and something that I'm sure many of you do, but we're going to talk a little bit in depth and be sharing some best practices surrounding that. So as Jerry said, I'm co-presenting with Tracy Pike, and Tracy recently joined our team at Ascend, and she's been such an asset to our work, and I'm really excited for you to get to hear from her. She has such a wealth of information, and she'll share some really great stories and kind of things too. But as we were preparing for this session, I was really reflecting on her transition to our team, and think it's a really great example of the concept that we really want to communicate today. Tracy's brought new perspective and ideas and ways to improve our work and expand our reach and just kind of become better all around at what we do. And her insight has come from observing our current practices and then providing feedback to us, right? And the reason that her feedback is welcomed, the reason that I so appreciate the things that she's been willing to share and her ideas for improvement is because there's trust there. I really trust her. I know that what she says is for the benefit of our team and for our work. And so this shared goal of really wanting to see each other succeed is the basis for this process going smoothly, in this feedback and observation loop being successful. And so really, conducting observations and giving feedback is not an obligation. It should be something we want to do to get better, that we want to give our audience, the youth that we're serving, our very best. And the way that we can do that is to constantly improve and and hone our craft. And so this is a strategy to help us do that. So as Jerry mentioned, you can find the handouts in your chat. There's actually 4 different handouts, which I know is a lot, but it's such good information. And hopefully those handouts will help you take this information back and share it with your colleagues and really benefit from this, the information of this session. So the observation and feedback loop, like I said, is really a common, normal, natural part of our work environment, and every product should undergo continuous quality improvement. And so our craft of championing youth is really no exception. We want to do whatever we can to achieve excellence for the youth that we serve. And so one key point we want you to walk away with is that this process is successful when there is trust and transparency. And so you'll hear me repeat that a couple of times throughout this session. But we really need to build that into our working relationships. Facilitators need to feel supported and valued in order to create an environment where feedback is welcome, where there's trust built. And then a written policy that's laid out right at the very beginning when you hire new facilitators helps to create that transparency and understanding of what to expect so that successful observation and feedback can happen. And so to start out, we want to know, do you have a written policy for observation and feedback? And so Megan, if you could launch that first poll, we'll give you a minute to respond and let us know if you have a written policy for observation and feedback.
Melissa, do you see the poll on your screen?
I don't. Tracy, do you?
No, I did not. I didn't know if it was because we are co-hosts.
Yeah. You know, sometimes those polls can be tricky. Look at this. You guys are on it. You know how to adapt. You're all just responding in the chat. That works too. Love it.
Like the majority of them are seeing it in their chat.
Yeah. So you can just respond yes or no if you have a written policy that outlines observation and feedback. Good.
A few yeses.
Yeah.
There are a few no's as well.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, hopefully for those of you that do have a written policy, you'll take maybe glean some ideas of things that you want to incorporate into that policy. Or later on, you can maybe share some of your ideas of things that you do that we don't maybe talk about as a best practice, and let us know those things too. So you'll have opportunity for both of that. And if you don't already have a written policy, stay tuned. I think you'll find some things that would be encouraging and helpful for you to do that. So Tracy's going to start us off here in talking about ways to obtain observational information. And again, I would direct you towards your handouts there. The first one Tracy's going to be, that we're starting out with, is titled Best Practices When Conducting Observations. And it looks like this right here. So Tracy, take it away.
Alrighty. I couldn't see the results of that poll. Can somebody who see the poll tell me what the results are? Jerry, can you see the results of the poll? Yes.
I don't know if it launched, did it?
Megan, did you see the results? People were saying yes.
It doesn't look like it launched, and we had responses in the chat box.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know, we're cognizant that there will be people here who are very familiar with observation and feedback, and then people who are not at all. And so, you know, there's a broad representation present clearly. And I wanted to, hopefully everyone will still be able to take something away, but it's the value I believe in us being together is that we do have the chat box and people can share things, and we will be sharing some specific things that kind of go beyond. I think Felicia mentioned in the chat box, you know, there's a sample template would be great. And I know if you're a recipient of a grant, there is a particular type of survey that directed toward the fidelity of the curriculum being presented, but we're going to give you some additional suggestions to create your own template, because the template that you should be creating to observe your speakers or presenters will probably be focused on what you want from them. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that here shortly. So if you could locate the handout, as Melissa pointed out to you, called The Best Practices When Conducting Observations. The reason I want to refer to that handout and talk through that just a little bit is because this is a compilation of best practices from across multiple fields. So it would be wise of us to look at that and see what kind of, how to create the best results for facilitators, because the observation process should enhance the facilitator being more effective. And I loved how Melissa started out stressing that it has to be based on a foundation of trust, that they trust that you have their best interest at heart. So, and I love that she also stressed that this should be written. It should be a written policy so everybody's familiar that this is going to happen. It's going to happen often. So in the written policy, I would like to suggest that the policy just kind of explains what to expect and how often to expect an observation, which we'll be talking about in a moment as well, and by whom should be observing. And I'm going to be speaking from, being in the field for about 20 years, and I have been observed and I've been the observer. And so I don't have all the answers, you all. I'm just speaking from my experience. But the process has to be mutual. And as a speaker, I found it very helpful, or presenter, to also be an observer of others. And then that shared wealth of knowledge and storytelling and what someone's doing really well can be translated to other presenters as well. So I want to emphasize that it should be a mutual process and be received as something that's a benefit to the presenters as well. So let's look at the handout I've referred to twice now. So let's remember in the preparation for doing an observation, remember the purpose. So remember the purpose is to use the data to just improve the speaker and the program, right? And so it also goes on to say on that handout, you are also there to learn as the observer. So you're learning how to go back and share with other staff members what was done well. And the last sentence under number 1, under prep, in that handout called Best Practices When Conducting Observation, literally says a strengths-based approach of observation with the feeling of appreciative inquiry. That's kind of fancy words, appreciative inquiry. And that means appreciating the person's strengths, and rather than focusing on the weaknesses. Now, weaknesses should be addressed. This shouldn't just be a fluffy process where we're running around complimenting every great thing someone does and not giving them any constructive feedback in order to better themselves, but always leading with the strengths. Also, decide how you will capture the data. Possibilities, it states on the handout, include installing a video camera. Now, I'm going to speak from a few stories from my own experience. Of course, if you were to, somebody said a sandwich approach. I love that, Erica. You were in my session yesterday. I see that in your in the chat box. So those of you who didn't attend yesterday, please go back and be sure to watch that presentation yesterday. But I'm glad to hear that Erica was paying attention. Decide how to capture the data. And by what I mean is it may not just always be done face-to-face. And Melissa's going to be speaking about how you do that anyway, as far as how to give it back. But we're talking prep now. You may want to install a video camera. Now, the installation of video camera sounds pretty complex, and it would certainly need the teacher, school, student permission. So what I have experienced is if you have a speaker or presenter that is unaware of like a certain word that they repeat a lot, or a swaying that's a little distracting, or a nervous tic that they have that they cannot be convinced of, it's nice just to make sure that you don't have to video the entire thing and get all this permission, as long as you keep students out of the shot. But you could just take your video camera, your own, in a little bit of an incognito way, of course with the speaker's awareness that you're going to do it, and just videotape for a moment so that they can observe themselves in that scenario or situation. And that's what that means in the handout. Number 3 says observed unannounced. So that is very powerful. And if your speakers are used to being observed, they should be. They are being observed by every student in the classroom. So another adult walking in should not be this huge distraction. It should be pretty common practice, actually. You may work for an organization that has donors that you may want to invite so they can see the power of sexual risk avoidance education. You may want to invite other speakers who are training. There's multiple reasons why our speakers should be being observed and being very comfortable with being observed frequently. And so ideally on the handout, it says between 10 to 33% of the time that it's an ideal, percentage to, in order to get an overall good impression. And again, we'll be talking about what you're observing here shortly and how to give that back to them as well. So Melissa, you want to pick up on number 5?
Yeah, okay, so once you are prepared for your observation, then let's talk about what you do during the observation, some best practices during observation. First is maintain a positive or neutral composure and body language. And your body language and facial expressions while observing really will communicate to the facilitator. So your goal is to blend in, like try to make yourself just a fly on the wall as much as possible. Because, as a facilitator or a trainer or anyone that's presenting a material, you read the room, you gauge people's engagement. You're reading your audience to kind of see if they're getting what you're saying. And so it would be kind of natural that if you're being observed, you're going to be looking to the observer for feedback to kind of think like, how am I doing here? And so as the observer, your goal is to really maintain a very neutral composure, maybe smile and nod to just encourage them to continue and communicate support, but really just find ways to not be distracting so that the facilitator can really focus on the students, the youth in the classroom, and the material that they're hoping to communicate. So I have to tell you, that seems like such common sense kind of things. And we know that many of you are already doing these kind of doing observations and feedback, and this might be really kind of common knowledge. And we're hoping you'll share some of your knowledge with us later on. But even though this seems like common sense kind of thing here, I actually had a boss observe me at one point early in my career as I was facilitating in a classroom setting with middle schoolers. And the way the room was set up, I'm standing in the front, the students are all at their desk kind of facing me and looking at me. And then in the back of the room was the classroom teacher's desk. So the classroom teacher was sitting in the back, and my boss, who was coming to observe me, sat right next to the classroom teacher's desk. And no joke, she had her phone out and she was whispering to the classroom teacher, like holding a whole conversation with them while I'm trying to facilitate this class. And so obviously, not only was it extremely distracting for me to stay focused on what I was there to do, but it was really distracting to the students also. And so sometimes us adults and teachers, even though we know what we should do, we don't always do it. So it's good to kind of just be reminded that if you're there to observe, your goal is really to blend in and not be distracting. All right, so then we're going to kind of get into more detail on number 6 here soon about assessing fidelity to the curriculum and delivery and engagement and all that. But it kind of will speak back to the importance of having a policy and procedures kind of manualized, that it's important to have an observation form to record details from your observation. And that would be just an internal form that you use to jot down your thoughts and impressions and remind you of items of import so that it will help to inform the feedback that you want to share. But Tracy's going to get into a lot more detail about specifically what you might want to include on that in just a little bit. So then finally, the next thing here on our best practices list is to bring a copy of the curriculum. And that can be really beneficial for a number of reasons. One, it will remind you of the goals and the core components, the sequence of content and plan for what the facilitator should be sharing in that session. But it will also allow you to potentially kind of have the same experience as the students. So if the students have a packet that they're flipping through and following along with content and information, then if you have the curriculum that you're flipping through and following along, it allows you to sort of have that perspective of the student, which is really beneficial to see if it's helpful and what that feels like for the student. And lastly, you know, being able to kind of follow along will allow you to document any really useful and successful adaptations or anything that the facilitator does that is received really well, or that you want to be able to kind of replicate and take back to the rest of your team later. So it'll kind of guide in using that. So then let's talk about after observation. That's number 9 on your handout. If you printed it out, it's kind of on the back of your sheet, so you might have to flip it over there. But number 9 says save constructive feedback for a later discussion. So what do you think is going to happen as soon as the session is done? The facilitator is going to come straight up to you and ask, so how did I do? Right? They want that immediate feedback. So I think it's really important to be prepared to share a few encouraging words. And honestly, no matter how it went, you can celebrate their willingness, simply their willingness to do this work. Because we all know, Tracy has said it a few times, even in previous sessions, like you can't get paid enough for this job, to be willing to talk to middle schoolers and high schoolers about sex and relationships, right? You really have to want to do it, and you really have to care about the adolescents that you're working with. So honestly, that alone should be celebrated. So you can share that with your facilitator right then in that moment. Like, thank you so much for your willingness to be here and share this information with these students. It's so critical and so important to their future thriving. And I really want to thank you for the time you took to do that. Something like that. And then if you can mention something specific that impressed you, that's great. You know, you could say something like, I like how you spoke to each student by name, or I was really impressed at how you handled that really tough question, or something like, I really like how you managed the energy of that group. You know, something like that. Just anything that sort of can be a little tidbit of encouragement that then you could kind of share that to put them at ease a little bit, and then just remind them that you'll be sharing more detailed feedback at a later time. And if you have that kind of written in your policy, something like that feedback will be provided within 1 week of the observation time, then again, that really builds the transparency. You can simply remind them of that, and it allows everybody to be on the same page there. And then also a really simple step, thank the facilitator. It's easy to do, but it really goes a long way in building rapport and strengthening your team. No matter what, receiving feedback or constructive criticism is not always the most comfortable thing for any of us to experience. So simply expressing your thanks, again, helps communicate that you're there to learn just as much, that it's sort of that two-way street that Tracy mentioned, that you're really there not to just critique what they're doing, but you're there to learn ways to improve your program and that you're hoping to really glean from their strengths also. So that's it for our best practices when conducting observations here. Now we're going to do a little activity here. We just want to know how similar or different these best practices are from what you're currently doing. So we're going to try a poll again, and we'll see if it'll work this time for us, where you can respond and let us know how similar or different are these 11 best practices that we just talked about from what you're currently doing.
Looks good. I can see the poll this time.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yay, when technology works and does what we want it to.
Only like half of you responded, so please fill out that poll so when we move forward, we know what to speak to.
Yeah.
It looks like very few are using all the practices, so that's encouraging. I mean, that's encouraging that some people are, but it's nice to know that we may be giving you some practical tips.
Yeah, there might be a thing or two you can walk away with here.
Yeah. Very good.
That's great. Okay, well, we'll close that then, and you can see how everyone else ranked here. So consider if you're already using, I mean, most of you are saying that you're kind of already using these, and good on you. We're here to be your cheerleaders and encourage you to keep up the good work and doing what you're doing. And then we'd also like to know, because it looked like a good percentage of you are already incorporating quite a few of these. We'd like to know if you have tips or suggestions, if there are other things that you do that you think are really beneficial that are different than these best practices that we listed here. And so if you're willing to share those tips or suggestions in the chat, we can all benefit from each other and learn together.
I see a really good comment. It looks like from Selena. If we're going to launch a poll, please give a heads up on how quickly they need to respond. That's a great tip.
We're not going to give you much time to think. You got to be on it.
Right.
Yes.
We did not give you much time. All the wonders of virtual world. But aren't we grateful for it, y'all? Seriously. Very good. Well, if you don't mind, then we're going to launch into something that I hope may be more helpful to those of you who are already putting in place a lot of the best practices when conducting your surveys. And now we are going to talk about building an observation form. And we're not speaking directly of the form that you would be filling out as a grant recipient or, assessing the fidelity of the curriculum, but we certainly do want to make sure you are assessing the fidelity of the curriculum. That being said, you can use the curriculum fidelity checklist that's provided for you if you have one. But I would like to talk for a few minutes about the things you should be looking for to help you, if there's a few items that you may not be included in the curriculum fidelity checklist that you may want to consider. And I'm going to call that program fidelity, okay? So there are three major focuses, and this is not on a handout. So if you have a pen and you find this interesting or helpful, please just jot this on the back side of one of the handouts that is provided. But there are three major items that we feel would be very wise for you to record. And the number one item to record is first impressions. You only get one chance to make a first impression. I did not make that up, but that is so true. So here's a couple things that I want to suggest too, that you create your own format. And I suggest a 5-point Likert scale. That Likert scale, that will give you objectivity regardless who you are observing, so that you are always observing the same things. Now, don't get ahead of me here in your thinking, because you're all really smart and a lot of you've done this before, but there will be room, and I will suggest this in a moment, that you have some open-ended areas at the end to record some unexpected occurrences, as the slide will say. But here's one of the first impression questions that I might suggest, okay? How about was there a capturing introduction that is pivotal to setting the foundation of the delivery, right? Because we're not talking fidelity of what's being taught. We're talking about giving the presenter tools to better themselves. Was there a capturing introduction? What was the first impression? Likert scale. You could range that from anywhere. I'm going to use this across the next few suggestions, from poor to fair to satisfactory to very good to excellent. Or you can make up your own verbiage for that. But just a 5-point Likert scale would give you the capability and room just enough to show progress of improvement, and be fair, and again, be objective across the board, no matter who you are observing. So first impressions should be something we're measuring. Something you could ask is, was there a capturing introduction? Second thing you might want to ask is something like, what type of initial engagement of the students? Were they engaged from the get-go with that capturing introduction? Were they bored and goofing off? You know, I mean, won't capture every one of those details, but just some sense of overarching, what were the first impressions? The second thing we should look for when we are looking to help the presenter enhance their skills is the skill of the instructor. So I have a few more illustrations on that one than I do just even on recording first impressions. And again, at the end too, we will also have our email addresses, and I could give you a whole lot more than what I'm going to provide here, but for the sake of time, when you're looking for the skill of the instructor, you could ask yourself questions or put on your feedback form something like, was the presenter current and relevant with current culture trends, yet authentic? Because that is a trick right there. You know, were they aware of social influencers, social media influencers? I'm going to tell you, even the young people themselves cannot keep up with current culture trends, okay? But that you even know what an influencer is would be something that you would want to be that, at least, I don't know, engage with students enough or their culture to be able to speak to them. Cardi B, I see that in the box. Yeah, are you aware that there is a very inappropriate Cardi B video out? Okay. Another thing you could ask when you're kind of gauging and helping the instructor on the skill is, were they making proper eye contact? My computer says I have a weak connection. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you okay.
Okay. If it continues, I'll just shut my camera. But okay, was there good eye contact? List any verbal tics, pauses, distraction the presenter may not be aware. I want to give you an example real quick on that one. Am I cutting out?
You were a little bit there, you know, kind of raced ahead, and I think we caught what you said, but if you just want to start back and repeat that, what you had just commented on after saying that your computer was maybe having issues, then we'll catch everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think turning.
Okay, sorry. I'm suggesting that you list any verbal. Is it better? List any verbal tics, pauses, distractions, or purposeful movement, or just some verbiage that you notice the presenter saying that they may be unaware. So let me give you an example in my own life. I was being observed, and I did exactly what Melissa said right a minute ago when she said, you know, as soon as you've been observed, you walk out of the classroom, you get in the car, and you turn to your observer, if this was the case in my situation when we were writing it together. And I said, how'd I do? What'd you think? How did it go? You know, what were your impressions? And we will talk about delivering that, how to deliver the feedback to the presenter. but I will never forget, the observer of me said, you know, why do you call the clients at the nonprofit for which I worked in Indiana at the time, why do you call our clients these people? And I said, I would never call our clients these people. Like, why would you say I don't even think that the clients are these people? And she said, you most certainly did. You said these people who are sexually active need the services of a pregnancy center. And you all, in effort for them, the audience not to be seeing me in the act of sex or as a sexually active person, I was using the terminology, these people who are sexually active, not realizing that I'm using the despairing term, these people, those who are sexually active are these people, and I'm not a part of these people. So I think we are not cognizant enough of ourselves, and when someone else could point out just some verbiage that is not offensive verbiage, but the way we're using it really can improve us. The third thing we want to measure for sure is the curriculum content, the way it's being presented, not the fidelity, what's being presented, the way the curriculum content is being presented. For example, are key concepts clear and easily identified? Not that were they present, but were they made clear? Was the presenter clear and organized with their scope and flow? Were they consistent? So lastly, I do want to suggest that you document the unexpected occurrences, because there is really no normal presentation. You might want to document unexpected occurrences like a fire drill, a tornado drill, a lockdown, student passes out in the middle of your skit, a student vomits in the class and the class is vacated, fighting in the hall prior to class or during your class, or picture day where half the class is dismissed to go get a picture taken, or field trips. Those are just a few of the experiences I have had that may have impacted the time I was allowed to be spent, or just the nature of the classroom that I had to try to manage and get through. So again, we just want to be very, very empathetic toward the presenters, because things happen, and that's why we want to also observe often so that we get a better, finger on the pulse of where that presenter is at, not just based on one occurrence. So let's get to giving that specific feedback now. How do you give that specific feedback? So next slide, Melissa. I want to challenge you. I think of this a little bit in the way of almost like how you would give like a review to someone. I would like to suggest that you give feedback in public. So the way you give feedback in public is like, celebrate it, like celebrate them and say, hey, let's meet for coffee, and let's meet at Starbucks, let's meet at Chick-fil-A, wherever. Let's meet for coffee, and I'd like to give you some feedback on your presentation. It should be intentional. It should be very balanced. Now, I'm going to refer now to another handout called the 7 Best Practices when Giving Feedback and Observations. And so this, this form that you will be referring to spells out the word support. Do you see it? There you go. It spells out the word support down the left-hand side. It's called the 7 Best Practices for Giving Feedback about Observation. All right. So the first thing you're doing is you're going to a public place. The other reason this is helpful is if you are giving some constructive feedback, if you are in public and someone is emotional about the way they receive it, we keep our balance, our emotions in a little bit more checks and balances when we are delivered information in public. And so, so it's just good to celebrate. Let's grab a cup of coffee. I want to give you some feedback. State the purpose of the meeting and the feedback. Let's make sure that we have written policy in place, and this is our go-to way of delivering this feedback. Make sure, secondly, that the staff understands their self-perception. I think that is best done with asking them, how do you think you did? How do you think it went? And we're going to talk about the usage of the word you here in just a moment. How do you think the presentation went? Because when you use the word you, it makes it feel so personal. It's hard not to react in a, like feeling attacked way. I learned this way back in the old days when I worked in the banking industry. We would always tell the clients, maybe if a loan was applied for, the loan was declined, the application was declined, not you were declined. That feels so offensive, right? And so understand their own perception and ask them how they felt like they did. Put the positive and strong feedback first. Everybody wants to be championed. Again, as Melissa said, nobody's doing this to get rich. We love young people and we want to share the optimal health outcomes for young people. And nobody's just doing this to hear themselves speak. People are doing this to change lives. So put the positive feedback first using the SAR method. It's mentioned in your handout. And that is situation, action, and result. And it gives you an example in your handout how to model that approach. But for the sake of time, I'm moving on. The second P is, or the fourth point, provide a model for program delivery. So what this means is model for program delivery staff how they should work with participants by setting a warm, accepting tone. So asking questions to encourage reflection, listening, paraphrasing. I'm reading right from the handout for you. Emphasize that you are learning too, that you don't have all the answers. You're not there to critique them so that because you think you can do so much better. You are learning too, and then whatever you can champion from them can be translated over to other speakers as well. You don't want one rock star speaker. You want them all to be rock star speakers. And sharing the strengths of one with the other is so helpful. And really one of the reasons we're doing this, right? The O stands for offer specific information in a calm tone. Be specific. Don't say, well, you seem pretty distracted when the kids were doing an activity. Be specific. I think there might have been some distraction happening that disengaged you from the students, or that was happened to make things more disengaging. So anyway, I think you get the idea on that one. R, respectful of the culture. Okay. Valuing each person's strengths, basically. I can't be, I work with someone who is a phenomenal speaker. I can't be her. Melissa can't be me. I have different antics and animation and, adult ADHD, most likely. But Melissa is calming and she has just a very factual way. We're not trying to be one another and replicate each other's, respected roles. And the last one, T, teach while staying supportive. One way to assess this is to ask the speaker, like, what were their key takeaways from the discussion? Hey, what did we learn here, and how can we use that to further and better other speakers? So constructive feedback encourages reflection, should build self-esteem in your speakers. They're going to go out and be even stronger next time, and promotes awareness and helps to identify actions that they can make to make adjustments. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's see. So we're going to talk about, am I going back out again?
No, you're good.
My computer keeps telling me I am. So I'm sorry, a little distracting. Okay, somebody says, got it. Good, thanks. All right. Oh, did somebody have a question for me in the chat box? Suggesting public place, not publicly. Oh, right. Yes. Okay. I was suggesting a public place, not a public announcement of the feedback, but, somewhere you could get in the corner, but just somewhere where there's accountability that we're in public and we're going to remain. Honestly, I'm suggesting it as almost a celebration too. Hey, you endured that. Let's grab a cup of coffee or a sandwich or something like that. It's just it sets a tone of appreciation. Instead of, let's meet in private and talk about all the things that you did in that presentation. I hope that makes sense. One setting for giving specific feedback, group setting, if there's things for a whole team to learn. Yes, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, taking it back to the team. That's great. What I thought would be helpful for us, if we have the time, I think we do, we're going to now ask you to find a sheet called the Coaching Feedback Checklist. And it doesn't look like it says support, but it looks, oh, I'm holding it up to you guys and you can't even see me. It looks like this with a lot of circles, okay? And it doesn't spell out the word support for you, but this matches exactly the other handout that I just reviewed in called Best Practices when Conducting Observations. So could you locate that? And then we thought it would be fun if Melissa and I would launch into a little demonstration as to what this feedback would look like as an activity. Are we doing that right now? Is that?
Yeah, sorry, I need to advance my slide here, sorry. Yep.
So that's okay. So as the role play is being acted out, I want you to take a look at that form, the checklist, and just put little check marks when you hear or see, you know, or identify some of the practices being used. How about that?
Yeah, so in this role play, Tracy and I are going to be reading from a script, and it's, the setting is that I am going to play the role of the facilitator. Tracy is playing the role of my manager, and so she is providing feedback to me after observing a session that I had presented to students. So you'll hear us reading this script, and then as you're listening, check off the best practices that you hear being used on that checklist that Tracy had just directed you to. All right, here we go.
Okay. All right. Hey, Melissa, thanks for meeting me for coffee. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. Have a seat.
Thanks. I'm glad to be able to get some time with you and appreciate that you've taken me out for coffee, my favorite drink.
Yeah, well, I just want to talk to you about the session I observed the other day, Unit 4. Meeting with the facilitators regularly, as you're well aware, just to give feedback, and help with hopefully some constructive things that will make us all be stronger presenters. I'm hoping this will call your attention to your strengths and identify any areas that we can improve on and help me figure out where facilitators need more help and support, even from me.
Uh-oh, am I in trouble?
Oh, of course not. No. I'm just trying to implement a focus on continuous quality improvement. I'm meeting with all the facilitators to talk about how we can work together to improve our program delivery. Don't we all want to get better? We do, right?
Well, I suppose, but I've been doing this for 2 years. I feel like I do a pretty good job.
Of course, you do. You sure do, Melissa. Continuous quality improvement means we're just focusing on everything we can even do better. You have been a great asset to the team. You were the fastest learner among the new facilitators when you were being trained, and that's why I want to give you feedback and challenge you to just keep getting better and stronger and improving.
Interesting. Okay, well, what am I doing wrong? Do you want me to teach more like you? I mean, I've got my own style.
Oh, of course you do. I respect that. No, you don't need to be me. There's only one room for me in the world anyway, right? I'm just saying, how do you think you did? How do you think the healthy relationship lesson went?
Well, I think it was okay. I always feel like I'm talking too much and rambling, and I'm not sure whether students are interested in what I'm talking about when I just stick with the curriculum content. I've actually been watching some YouTube videos of comedians and am trying to find some good jokes to like spice up the class a little bit.
Oh, please don't do that. You have got to be authentic. I wish you could see yourself the way the students see you. You are very clear when you convey instructions and content from the curriculum. You always finish on time. It's a sign that you're not rambling or talking too much at all. I've never seen you rush to get content covered, and I saw the students engaging in healthy relationships activity completely.
Okay, so I shouldn't worry that I feel anxious on the inside. It's all coming across okay?
Oh, it's absolutely coming across okay. It's coming across great. it sounds like you've been worried about your delivery. And I want you to know everybody does, especially in areas that they feel they may not be doing well in, but it's not about us. It's not about how we feel. It's about the students getting information and being able to apply it to their lives. And they responded to you when you gave them your attention. But, you know, I did notice that when you gave them the assignment and they were kind of concentrated on the assignment, there was some cell phone usage on your behalf during that activity on the side. What message do you think that might be sending the students that you're not, you know, engaged?
Well, I was just checking my texts while they were working. I mean, I didn't think about what message it would send to the students, but since you mentioned it, I guess they might think it's okay to use their phones during class. And I really hate it when I'm talking and someone is looking at their phone.
Yeah, I've noticed it more frequently, and I've noticed other facilitators doing it too. I know we're all very connected to our technology, right? But I'm concerned that our team may not be engaging students consistently the way they have in the past. And I wonder whether other facilitators who kind of look to you as a leader and a strong facilitator will also not think about the message it's sending to the students. I'd like for us to limit our phone usage to just the breaks or in between classes or something. I'll bring this up in our next facilitator meeting, since it's an issue that affects more than one of us. It affects all of us because we're a team.
Okay. I mean, I just hadn't thought about it.
Well, I'm so glad you're open to feedback, Melissa, and I want you to feel supported and that we're all learning together about continuous quality improvement.
End scene. That's the end of our act.
There.
Yeah.
All righty.
So what we want you to do is, if you can take a moment to count up the things that you, the best practices that you identified, the number of them that were used in that role play, and just share your response in the chat there. Like, how many best practices did you count that were used? I'm seeing 6, all 6. And
I'm literally sitting here counting how many there's supposed to be. SUPPO. 7. A lot. You get in. A lot is always good.
A lot.
Hey, Melissa, y'all keep coming in on the chat, but we've got to, try to wrap this up and to be timely. So let's go ahead and just kind of finish the last few slides as a conclusion, and so we have a little bit of time for some questions if possible.
There were a couple of great questions that I want to make sure we get to. So really, to summarize, the material that we presented, the purpose of observation and feedback, the feedback loop, is really to teach and to learn. Both the facilitator and the observer should approach this process with a willingness to learn and identify areas for improvement, as well as building upon our strengths, what we've done well. So hold loosely to the plans and ideas that you have, because as you conduct, this portion of kind of a CQI process, you've got to be willing to respond and adapt to the data and information that you get about what's working and what isn't. So it shouldn't be approached as an obligation. This is really a valuable opportunity to improve what we do so that we can help you thrive. And that this is really successful, this observation and feedback loop is successful when there is trust and transparency through the whole process. And we'll speak to that again when we address the questions here at the end.
Okay, so here's some take-home points we hope that you will be able to take away from this presentation is select ways to best obtain observational information that fit the culture of your organization. That would be, not what we're giving you here as a model or template may not work for all people, so you have to pick and choose what works best for your culture. Look for curriculum fidelity. We're never trying to underestimate the importance of that, but also look for fidelity or curriculum delivery and unexpected occurrences, and please record those as well.
I'm sorry.
Just want to make sure we are looking at the what, the curriculum, and the how, the facilitation, and know anything that interfered with those. Give specific feedback about the program delivery that is balanced and supportive, but also allows the listener an opportunity to grow, because that's what this is about, encouraging their strengths, but giving them opportunities to grow. And incorporate observations and supportive feedback to promote a continuous quality improvement culture and develop a community of practice among your program delivery staff. It's really great team building, because if everybody's going through it and everybody's delivering feedback and everybody's receiving it, it really is a good team building exercise as well.
Okay, so then we do have just a couple of moments for questions, and I saw a little bit of discussion in the chat related to questions about providing feedback and the way feedback is received based on maybe generational differences. And so I wanted to address that, because I am fascinated at studying the different generations. And there's a book about, I think it's from the 70s. What's it called? Generations, the History of America's Future. I don't think that's exactly right. It's by Howe and Strauss. Anyway, it talks about this kind of cyclical nature that you see with generations, that there's different there's four different kind of cohorts, and then generations sort of cycle through those cohorts. And so it's really interesting to align the different generations, especially the ones that we are personally familiar with, and see where the similarities are and where the differences are. And so I think it's important for us to be aware that our culture, our environment, shapes who we are. And so there are going to be a few differences between generations. Maybe like a boomer's generation, it was maybe more accepted that like no news is good news. You don't want to be hearing from your boss, right? I mean, that was sort of like the expectation at that time. And so now maybe more current generations are really seeking feedback on a more regular basis. And so I would challenge you to kind of like read up on that. That'd be great extended learning, as I say. I won't call it homework because no one likes that term. But it is pretty fascinating, and it's definitely something, especially in a management type of position, it's an influencer that it would be really important to be aware of and find ways to, again, it's all about building that trust and transparency with your staff. So no matter what generation they're in, just having a knowledge of the influences of those generations is helpful to you, but no matter what, we're all people, and we can only accept feedback from those that we really trust. So that would be key. Tracy, did you have anything there to add?
Yes. I want to, I think more maybe importantly than the generations is just the dispositions. I have, delivered feedback to people who are very emotional because they are speaking from a place of pain in their lives and share a lot of their personal testimony or story. And so to give any type of constructiveness, I want to do so delicately. And that's why I'm suggesting the removal of the word you as much as possible. Like when you said this, how about when it was said that, this situation happened, feels so much less offensive. And so I think, all of this observation and feedback really calls us to a place of maturity to be able to receive it and then to give it back. And I think that's why I want to suggest that everybody who's receiving it is getting it back as well, so that we are team building and we feel the pain and pressure of how do you say this delicately and yet still help someone grow. So I think that was a really perceptive thought on the generations, but I want to take it one step further and say you really need to know your speaker and their disposition as well, the personality. So be kind, right? Be kind, but be helpful. So I think we have 2 minutes left. And I knew that. Oh, and the book is being listed you guys are awesome. What a great audience.
Oh yeah, look, somebody already got to it before I did. I was trying to look up the title. You guys are fantastic.
Yeah, they're on it. They probably could have taught this whole this session. But, do put your own tips in the chat box so we can capture that so other people can benefit from your knowledge in the audience, because y'all are rock stars too. We know it.
Yes.
Jerry, did you want to give a conclusion?
Yes.
Wrap up?
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Melissa. And I think these are great examples to follow. Your role play was great. Everybody in the chat box seemed to enjoy that. And just from my own experience, when you go into giving somebody feedback, having something specific is critical, and people really like to hear what you have to say if it's thoughtfully presented. So thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Tracy. And thank you, everyone. We will let you go to a break and then to your next session. Bye-bye.